Hi, this is Assemblyman Ryan Peters. Welcome to my first Ask Me Anything segment. As you can see, I'm in my holiday gear, getting ready for the holidays, and just wanted to talk to you about what the purpose behind Ask Me Anything is and why we just started to do it. So what we're trying to do is just be as transparent as we can. And going into this holidays, we're gonna have some more town halls. Next year, we're gonna have a lot more functions out into the public, and just get out there and answer people's questions and talk to them. What am I doing in your name as a legislator? What are we doing in the state? Answer your questions. Anything about me you want to ask, feel free to submit again. We did receive an overwhelming amount of questions, comments, and we'll try to get to many of them today. The ones we didn't get to, we'll certainly get to them in our next segment. So without further ado, let's get on to the first question.
All right, let's start it off with something that a lot of people ask, something people want to know more about, and that is your extensive military career and history. Tim Devlin wants to know, what was the hardest part of BUD/S, and what is the process like for becoming a SEAL?
So for me, the hardest part of BUD/S is waking up every morning. I mean, each day is long. It has a lot of evolutions. You have 3-mile runs. You have 2-mile open ocean swims. There's obstacle courses. Every day is a test. But for me, it was just, you finally crawl into that bed. You get a good night's sleep, kind of 2 or 3 hours, 4 or 5. And then it's time to wake up and start a whole nother day of 18 hours of being cold, wet, and miserable. So just waking up initially going, oh man, we got a whole nother day, was probably the toughest part of BUD/S for me. The making of Navy SEAL, I mean, I'm sure there's tons of books and movies, unfortunately, out there. It seems like we put out something each and every day. But really, I mean, it starts with basic underwater demolition SEAL training. There's 3 phases. The first one is, mostly the do you have the heart to make it? The third week is Hell Week, which is staying up for a week without sleep. Many people quit during that time. This next phase is diving, so a lot of water stuff, testing your comfortability. And the third phase is weapons, demolition, land warfare, that type of thing. Once you get through that, we have jump school and some other SEER training, survival, evasion, resistance, and escape. And then we have a SEAL qualification training, which is we're actually learning how to do the very basic course of our tactics and what it takes to be a SEAL. And then you head to your platoon, where you actually learn how to become a Navy SEAL and have our culture and act and how to behave. So I think all in all, it's about an 18-month process to get to the platoons. And then you work up with your platoon, then hopefully you deploy to war.
DJ wants to know, between your regular job outside of being a legislator, between being a legislator and assemblyman, and being a commander in the SEAL Reserves currently, what's your strategy on balancing your home life with your wife and 3 kids and everything else that's on your plate?
So I think it's just effective time management. I mean, that's one of the things I learned at the Naval Academy is your days are packed and you just need to prioritize. I wake up, get a workout in, help get my kids off to school, and then I start my day job and work throughout that day. And once that's over, I start my next jobs on the weekends. That's usually when I do my reserve training. And prior to that, just answering all emails and everything, getting ready and prepping for training. But really, for me, it's just about effective time management. I like to be busy. I like to stay busy. It's one of the things, so long as, rolling stone grows no moss. So as long as I'm moving, keeps me energized. Movement is my prescription, so it keeps me healthy, keeps me moving. The minute when there's nothing to fill my time is usually when I start to get sick or get bored, and it just nothing good happens from there. So the more I can stay busy, the more I can stay active, the more I can pack my day. It just leads to a more rewarding and fulfilling life.
Don Kleinbeck had a few questions. We're gonna answer the first 2 he had. The first one is an easy one. Pretty sure which way you're gonna go. Army or Navy?
Navy.
All right, 1 word for you, Don. So I hope you're happy with that question.
Thanks, Don.
The second one is, how will you use your office to push back against Governor Murphy's agenda?
Well, being in the minority in Trenton is difficult. Clearly the majority rules, and they get to post the bills that they want to post and get to start the discussions on what we're going to do. They get to set the agenda really in Trenton. So I think for me, I sort of started to change my perspective and not just continue to try to write bills that I knew the speaker would never post because I'm a Republican, and really try to change the conversation about what is actually on the agenda and what we're doing. I happened to take a trip down to Washington, D.C. and popped into Congressman Dan Crenshaw's office. We never served precisely together. We had done a couple courses together, and I knew of him, and we met in his office and talked, and I said, you know, Congressman, what's it like to be in the minority in Congress? You're down here, sort of a toxic environment, and there's always fighting and infighting, and what do you do to actually just stay motivated? And he said, look, I know Speaker Pelosi's not going to post any of my bills, but what I can do is find the bills that are up there and try to change the conversation and have a policy discussion with those who are willing. And I just thought that was a very unique insight, and I came back to New Jersey and tried to do that on my own and just get the word out to we the people about what the government is doing in your name. There's many things that go on that I think people just are busy with their own lives and things that they do, and they don't necessarily are following all of our Insider New Jersey and Politicker NJ and Globe and all those insider articles we have about what we're doing every day and the drama that who hates who today and who is Murphy and Sweeney fighting, and they're not paying attention to that. They're going on their lives. So if you can highlight those issues and those bills to our constituents and really talk to them about what's going on and the policy decisions, it's really starting to affect things. I mean, we saw the change recently in this last session. We put up a bill, or a bill was put up by the speaker about a 2%, removing the 2% cap on taxes, essentially raising our taxes because Governor Christie put a cap in on our taxes at 2%, so they wouldn't go higher than the previous year. Now in Trenton, they're looking at removing that. And so they posted the bill, and for the first time in 2 years, they were stuck at 35 votes. You need 41 to pass a bill, and they were stuck at 35. And you actually got to sit there and watch the arm twisting on the floor as they went around to the people who abstained or vote no on the Democratic side, and just literally they're running around talking to them. And really by the end, they got to their 41, but I think those last 6 certainly weren't happy about it. And I think that's because we're getting the message out to the people, and they're making their voice heard, and that this is not okay, that continuing to raise taxes and continuing to have all these non-budget items that we're just going to supplementals that we're going to pay for. The illegal driver's license bill that we had pushed so hard from a policy perspective, a safety perspective. What safeguards do we have that they're not going to register them to vote, because we had previously last year passed a bill that said if you get a driver's license, essentially it registers you to vote. So we brought that up and said, well, what safeguards do we have in place? And we got a lot of blank looks. And so that bill allowing illegal immigrants to have driver's license now only passed by 1 vote. And I think we're really starting to change the conversation and really starting to highlight things for our constituents to call folks, call their representatives, be involved, and let their voices heard. And I think when we the people stand up and talk, it's hard for the representatives not to listen.
So you've had a big public push on trying to end taxing on military combat zone pay. So you went out to the public, you told them about it, and one of the last questions we got, was from Rachel Brecky, who wanted to know how can you continue that push in the new year and really put an end to this tax.
Thank you, Rachel, for your question. And the bill to end the tax on combat zone pay has been around for about 20 years in the legislature. This is all unbeknownst to me. Certainly the 2 times I was in Iraq and while I was in Afghanistan, my combat zone pay was taxed, and didn't really know about it because it's one of those things you accept that there's taxes, you're going to pay them, they keep going on. But really, when I got to the assembly, a reporter called and said, what are my feelings on it? And I was actually blown away once we started digging into it and doing our research to figure out that really there's 49 other states that do not tax combat zone pay. So let me just break that down again to its simplest terms. If you're in the military and you deploy to a combat zone, you get an extra $250 a month because you are in a federally designated combat zone. It's not anywhere you deploy, it has to be a combat zone where you're taking fire or you're in an area where you're actively engaged in war. If you are there and you are deployed, the federal government gives you another $250 a month. They don't tax that pay. However, the state of New Jersey does. And they're the only state, in all 50 states, they're the only state that does. We've calculated that that would cost us about 1.1 million in lost revenue if we didn't tax this pay, which is, I'd say it's a drop in a bucket, but it's even less than that. I mean, we just had our last session on Monday where we just have all these non-essential, supplemental bills that we pass and saying, yes, we have to do this. We have to spend another $6 million for this. We have to spend another $7 million for this. And these are all side projects. It's not the actual members of New Jersey who have volunteered to risk their life for our country and have enlisted and joined the military and National Guard out of New Jersey and are deployed to combat zones and get a meager $250 a month for the pleasure of being shot at. And we in New Jersey tax that pay. So the minute I found out about it, I've called every newspaper. We do these social media posts. We're out there as much as we can. And it's really starting to catch fire. I now have Democrats approaching me saying, hey, I hear you have this bill. My husband told me I should look into it. My friend said you have this bill. Could you send it to me? What's the bill number? What do we need to do? I think right now the bill to end this tax is through the Veterans Committee. It's now in appropriations. So if it gets through appropriations, we could be on the last session date. I think it's in January 13th, if I'm not mistaken. We could get it through appropriations and on the bill there to actually vote it and join the other 49 states that don't tax combat pay and allow our soldiers, sailors, Marines, and airmen to go to combat and get their $250 without having New Jersey's greedy hands pulling at it and taking it for their other side projects. I mean, it goes to the bigger sense that I have in my philosophy about taxes is to allow it to stay in the pockets of the people who earn it. Once we get back to that, we can stop pulling taxes from things like combat pay, and hopefully we'll get that passed in this last session in January. And if we don't, I'll be the first guy to introduce it again for the next session. I'll spend the next 2 years fighting for it. So thanks, Rachel, again for your question. I appreciate it.
Natalie R. wants to know, how have you fought back against taxes in New Jersey?
Sure. So it's no secret that New Jersey is just completely overtaxed. It's not sustainable. We consistently spend more than we bring in, and we bring in more than most any other state and tax our residents in order to do so. So, the consistent thing that when I talk to folks is they have timelines of when they can leave New Jersey, which is very unfortunate, obviously, for our population, our people. And really, it's going to lead to a whole generation of grandkids, grandparents Skyping each other because they can't live in the same state, especially if they want to stay in New Jersey. So the whole flight out of New Jersey is a big problem, and it does center around taxes, property taxes. Look, the Democrats have held a supermajority in the legislature for a while now, and so they're going to put the bills up that they know they can pass. So again, shifting tactics is I've gone back home into my district and go town by town. Specific example is the rain tax. So New Jersey passed a tax on rain. Essentially, they wanted to create another bureaucratic layer of government that would create a municipality function that would treat rainwater and all runoff. Now, keep in mind that anytime you do any development, any planning, there is an MUA, a sewage system in place to account for all the rain runoff. But in an attempt to find new and creative ways to tax New Jersey residents, the Democrats passed and signed into law the rain tax. I came back, went town by town, explained the tax because it was up to the mayors whether or not they wanted to implement this new authority that would provide an untold amount of taxes on our residents, and I had them sign a no rain tax resolution. I'm up to about 17 mayors and council members who have agreed not to pass a rain tax. And it really just goes to show of sometimes we may not be able to stop them in Trenton, but we can definitely stop them in our locality, in our local towns, and just by going out and explaining to the residents, to the people in charge of each town, what actually we just passed, the problem with it, and why we shouldn't just continue to pull money from our residents in order to have pet projects and have patronage for politicians to dole out to their friends in order to just continue to gain more votes.
All right, John Turek asks, a little bit of a pointed question. If you're going to introduce any bills this session or do nothing.
Thank you, John. I appreciate your question. I know you're an avid fan of my work. To the question of how many bills do I want to pass or what am I going to do this next session, I think in this last session we wrote and submitted somewhere upwards between 20 and 30 bills. and I think 2 points on that. One, on Monday, we just had a session. It was approximately 7 hours. We passed upwards of about, I think, 150 bills. Philosophically, my perspective is I don't know that every session we need to come and pass more laws, more regulations, more licensing requirements on the wonderful residents of New Jersey. There's a certain aspect where we should start repealing some of these laws and not creating onerous requirements on all of our residents, businesses who want to grow and want to succeed, and people who want to be entrepreneurs and grow and start their businesses have to pay untold amounts of fees and requirements and licensing and permits and this. They're just becoming money in the pockets of the government so that they can spend it where they want. They're not safety requirements. It's just a fee you pay because they say so. So I won't be passing any of those, John, but really the other aspect of it is, as the Democrats would tell you, might apparently makes right. So if you are in the minority, they're not going to put a lot of your bills up, as I've come to find in the last 2 years. However, when you write a good bill and it's a good idea, they will take it from you, which I'm completely okay with. It just happened last week, and what they do is they take the bill, they copy, they paste it, they make an amendment to it, however small that may be, and then they can change the prime sponsor, and then they submit it. So as President Reagan said, it's amazing what can get done when it doesn't matter who gets the credit. So I'm not really about getting the credit or having and running around and saying, you know what, I passed this many laws or this many bills. So long as I'm working for the people of New Jersey to make it a better place to live and make it less expensive. And when we have a good idea, if it's taken and that's passed, that's okay with me too. So thanks again, John. Keep up the good work.
All right, next question. Brian Schoenberg wants to know if there's any way to be bipartisan in today's world, and can people still strike a balance and hear different points of views without getting angry?
Oh, absolutely. I believe that wholeheartedly. Look, I'm born and raised. I grew up in New Jersey, and I went to law school at New Jersey, which gets you around a lot of Democrats. And I did a fellowship at the Eagleton Institute of Politics, where there was a program of 30 students, and I was the one of one as Republicans. So met a lot of Democrats, hung around a lot of Democrats, and now as we've all gone to do different things, many of them work within the state, some in the legislature, and they're good friends, and we can talk and we can go back and forth. Where we disagree is about policy, and I think that's a good thing. I think debating policy and telling them why I think they're mistaken, and they can tell me why I'm mistaken. You generally meet in the middle. I think one of the biggest problems in New Jersey, and I think hopefully we've jumped the shark on this, is just so many one-party rule issues, right? So the amount of Democrats in New Jersey is really starting to, I think, harm our democracy as far as just one idea, one-party rule going through. And I think as we've started to see that, a lot of people are realizing that on both sides of the aisle. And Leader Bramnick just actually mentioned that during the last session. We had some pretty contentious bills about vaccinations, illegal driver's licenses, marijuana referendum, and really we stood up in the assembly floor and we debated, not angrily. We ideas back and forth through the speaker who moderated it, and we got to go our ideas across. Do we hate each other? Absolutely not. When there is a break, as there often is, because sometimes we're waiting for the Senate to send bills to us, while it's 20, 30 minutes of waiting for those bills to come in, you go across the aisle and you start talking to the other folks. And really, what I found is, and it's what I've always found, is it's hard to hate up close. So when you're talking to them and you understand them and you realize they have families and they do oftentimes believe they're doing what's good for New Jersey, and we just disagree on how they're doing it, we can get along. We have a caucus called the 218 caucus. So I was elected into the 218th legislature. And all the other new members of the 218 legislature, we got together and we'd meet before sessions and just talk about really family, life, sometimes some bills that go back and forth. Inevitably, it goes into shop talk. But really, you got to know each other, and we passed a resolution, all of us, all the new members of the 218 legislature, saying that we should work together in areas where we can work together, we would. And I think we're starting to make a difference because just one side groupthink, I'm right because I'm on the blue team and I'm wrong because I'm on the red team, just really doesn't make for a better New Jersey. The one thing when I go around and I give speeches and talk to folks is I never, being in the military, I never ran around and said, hey, I'm a Republican, what are you? We were all just on the same team, we wore the same uniform, and frankly, I didn't know nor care if they were a Republican, Democrat, what their religious views were, what race they were, what gender they were. None of that really mattered. We were all there for the common purpose. And so how I translate that to now politics is, I'm not the party of red, and they're not the party of blue. I think we're all the party of red, white, and blue.
Carl has a question. We're taking a different tone here away from the serious. He wants to know, how does your hair stay so fresh?
How does my hair stay so fresh? Well, thanks, Carl. Hope it's fresh right now, and it's looking good. Obviously, probably not a serious question from Carl. But what it does remind me of is one of my good friends in politics and in life is Frank Luna. Won't be able to view this for probably a couple more weeks. He's currently at boot camp. I think one of the oldest guys to ever go through boot camp, somewhere around 33, 35. Sorry, Frank, I should probably know your age. But currently at boot camp at Fort Benning. We're proud of you, buddy. But whenever we put up a post on social media, whether it be something serious or something we're trying to promote, there's usually a comment from Frank about my ability or inability to skip arm or leg day. And I appreciate you, Carl, and your comments about keeping my hair fresh. But I appreciate the non-serious question as a segue away from some of the other state business. But I'll continue to do my best to keep it fresh for you, Carl. Thanks, buddy.
The next one is not so much a question, but a nice statement from David Krasinick. He just wanted to tell you in your AMA photo that you had a very beautiful dog.
Oh, thanks, David. That's Gus. He's a Newfoundland, about 5 years old, and great with the kids, and we love him. He's a big part of our family. What I'd also like to say, David, I know you're very active a participant. David and I don't always agree on a lot of things. I think he has alternative views than I do on a lot of things. But what I'll give David credit for is he's always willing to engage in discussion, and he can disagree without being disagreeable. So David, continue to voice your opposing concerns. I don't have community pages and that just to have people say wonderful things about me. But I'd encourage everyone else to be more like David and disagree without being disagreeable. So thank you.
Anthony Angelosi wants to know, how can Democrats and Republicans work together on education policy?
So in my 2 years in Trenton, I found education to be a bipartisan issue. I think just there's some issues that we disagree on how to do it. And I've so far been able to find the middle ground and look at, not overtaxing, because there's plenty of times we definitely want to fully fund our schools, but we can no longer look to the highest property taxes in the state and say let's increase property taxes in order to fund it. So we're looking for ways to fund our schools through good policies and programming, but also keeping in mind that teachers know how to run their own schools and leaving it to them. I think I was one of the few Republicans in this last cycle to be endorsed by the NJEA because we actually sat down here at this table and discussed what's going on in their lives, what's going on in their classrooms, and certain policies that the state has that's affecting them, and also making sure that we're not cutting our schools to the bone, because I bring in the superintendents and the business administrators who say, look, there is no other place to cut. I've cut every music department, every PE department, there's nothing else. Yet my funding's getting cut again. What do you want me to do? And so we're continuing to work out. I have some bills in to create some panels in order to have discussions and committees to bring all people together for their good ideas. But certainly it's becoming a bipartisan issue because we all want the best for our children, and we all want them to be educated in our great New Jersey public schools.
Isaac Sharam had a few questions, but we're only going to get to a couple of them so we could get everybody involved here who reached out. How can Republicans do better at winning elections statewide And would you run for higher office in the future?
Ooh. Well, thanks, Isaac. I'll answer that first one, the first question first. How can Republicans do better statewide? I think in this last cycle, we just saw that we're out and we're sticking to our message, and we're saying what Republican values are and what they can do, and not just saying what the Democrats are doing and why we're just not them. We've had success. So for the first time in 10 years, we increased the numbers of assembly persons in the assembly, and we increased the Senate by 1. So clearly our message is slowly starting to resonate. I really think it's about taking that message of rugged individualism, and that if you are here and you have an idea, you really can make it in this state, and it's not through government handouts or over tax policies that are going to overtax you and keep you down and stop you from really going up any higher, or that, you know what, I'm not going to expand my business because the taxes on us are just way too high, and it's going to be cost prohibitive to do so. What we want to is remove those barriers and have businesses grow and have that money be given to creating jobs so that we can grow the middle class and have jobs, and really talk about the dignity of work and what it means to have a job. And that's all possible by lowering taxes. It's not just saying when you lower taxes that we're going to make rich people richer. I'm not rich, and most of the people I hang out with aren't rich. In fact, all the people I hang out with are not rich. And so really, but when you do cut taxes for the people paying them, they can turn around and support other things that are important to them, create jobs, grow businesses, and that creates jobs for folks who then go out and spend money, and it's a recurring cycle of doing that up. So really, how do we grow our Republican majority is going out and having that message and talking to folks and saying, look, this is what we believe in. This is where we think the Democrats have gone wrong, and this is why my background and my beliefs will help serve you, the people, and the constituents. You know, a lot of times you look around the legislature, and really there's people that have been there for 30, 35 years. And they have their little pin, they have their license plates, and they really like having the aides around. They love the titles that are lauded upon them. And really, I think that they think the seat belongs to them. I promise you to never have that attitude, that this seat that I sit in as an assemblyman is granted to me by all the constituents in the 8th District, and that it is theirs, it is not mine. And by continuing that attitude and working for them, I think pushing those values will help grow what we believe in and really change the tone of the conversation and trend. As far as higher office, after just finishing this brutal campaign, where many of you probably saw my face on the TV, much more than you would have liked. Not really thinking about the next step at this point, and you're gonna have to start a petition to talk to my wife to allow me to do it. So you're gonna have to talk to the admiral on that one. But thanks, Isaac. Appreciate the question.
All right, we are at our last question. From
Wow.
JD.
Time flies, huh?
Yes, it does. From J.D. Bryden. He wrote in and he wants to encourage you, it's not more of a question, more of an encouragement, encourage you to tell your fellow colleagues in Trenton to make similar videos so people can learn more about their legislators. Thank you, JD. And is there anything you'd like to say about the benefit of doing this?
Yeah, really. I mean, a lot of this is us just talking to constituents and our people and saying, what would you like to see more of? And a lot of it is transparency or tell me about yourself. So we're going to try to continue to push this, do more Ask Me Anythings, where there really is just any questions that you have. I'll do my best to answer them. And the guidelines are really anything that you can come up with that you want to know about me or what we're doing in your name. And as far as my colleagues, hopefully they'll see it. And if they're interested in it, they will do it as well. But I thank you, and hopefully this works out well, and we'll do more. So thank you very much for all your questions. What have I learned from this is I really didn't know how many comments we would get, frankly. I thought maybe it would be a 2 or 3 question segment between email, all our social media, our website, and many of the ways you can contact me. Even one came in through a phone call. I was actually quite blown away by the amount of the questions that came through. Like I said in the beginning, we certainly didn't get to all of them, but this does create a whole host of information that we can do for another segment. So we'll definitely be doing this again. We'll solicit more questions, and if we don't get any, we've got more than enough questions for another session. So thanks again. If you hung around this long, good on you. and I look forward to this more often. Thanks a lot.